the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Lori, could you call the roll?
Absolutely. Colin Burnell.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Seldner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask.
Here.
Tony Vostelica.
Here.
And Kathy Willis.
Here. And I need a motion and a second to adopt the minutes from the April 12th regular board meeting.
I had a couple notes from the minutes. I had some questions on it. So in the minutes, it said that David joined virtually. And then from my recollection of the meeting, I don't remember seeing it. He was in and out of the meeting. Was I wrong in this assumption or assessment? Was he there the whole time?
At 7:26, he came in.
He
He
logged
was
in,
just
but-
muted. That's where the feedback was coming from. So he was present in the meeting.
So he was present in the meeting? Okay.
At 7:26. I
So
think
did he participate in the votes
Yes,
too?
yes.
Okay, because I didn't hear him at all,
Yeah.
so that's where I was kind of confused as to why that was. Okay, all right.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second to adopt the minutes?
I move.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Yeah, no committee reports as we were in that interim. And we have the report of the superintendent. We'd start with Angela on the personnel report.
Joyce.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joyce. Personnel report, sorry.
All right, should have had a personnel report that was included in board book on Friday. And then yesterday Lori would have, uploaded and emailed the board members about an agenda.
And do I have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report and also the personnel report addendum?
I do have a question for the addendum. It is on the top person for professional staff on the addendum. And then I'll just eliminate the name here, but the person will be on a license with stipulations while pursuing the license. What is the what are the stipulations, and when is that? How much time do they have to pursue the license?
There's two of them.
Is there more than one? I missed one. Oh, the next one too.
Yeah.
So that's, not real uncommon, so, both of these individuals are certified teachers. However, neither of them actually have the license for EL. So you apply to DPI for a license with stipulations. And there's different pathways. Depending if you're on a license with stipulations for special ed or for math or for, there's different pathways that individual can take to obtain their license. And somebody can be on a license with stipulations for up to 3 years. So the DPI will grant you a license with stipulations for 1 year. If you don't finish the pathway in that 1 year, you absolutely have to demonstrate progress, but you can apply for a second year and even a third year.
Do we follow up with those individuals for their licensors? And is there, I guess the reason that I have the concern was due in part due to the individual that we had recently had the experience of. How is that different in this regard?
The HR office will certainly help and support the individual I mean, they have to go on the DPI website and apply for the license.
Mhm.
You know, we can help that process. We can send reminders, you know, it is their responsibility. We keep a list of all employees that are currently on a license with stipulations. You know, we ask what pathway they're in. If they need a second year with stipulations, they can apply on July 1st or after. So we make sure that they've, you know, if they haven't completed the pathway, we need to make sure they apply for their second year license with stipulations.
Do we give them deadlines?
Well, there's expectations that they apply within a reasonable amount of time.
Joyce, both these people have master's degrees. They're qualified. They have a license to teach. But so does this mean they're not trained in English as a second language?
Not specifically. Now I'd have to look. I don't have it with me.
Okay.
You know what their license. Both of them have numerous licenses.
Okay, but not this one.
And through the interview process, you know, I feel that they're, you know, certainly viable candidates.
So is this a matter of applying for a license, or is it a matter for training and then applying for a license?
They have to apply for, you know, if, again, whether it's special ed, math, EL,
Okay,
if we, you know, hire that person and they don't have that license, they have to apply for a license with stipulations.
Yeah.
And then again, whether it's coursework, whether it's, you know, through a university or a CISA program, oftentimes they can take
Okay.
practice. Oftentimes, in fact, they enlisted because of these, in this particular situation, these two individuals, because of the licenses they have already, are somewhat closely aligned to EL. Both of these, if they wish, can take it's called the praxis test.
sure, okay.
It's the
okay.
content test. And if they pass the test, they can apply for their ESL.
Okay,
license.
okay. That
So-
answers my question.
But in any school district, you know, I want to say right now, I don't have the list in front of me. Throughout the district and in a number of different areas, we probably have 20 to 25 teachers out of 410 that are on some type of license with stipulations.
Okay.
So,
Is there any, like, so it has stipulations, so then is there any, are they not privy to certain things by those stipulations? Or is it just simply that, you just need to get a license, go get it, and then there's no, you know, like, for example, you're on a license with stipulations, you're making X amounts, until you get the license, and then you make X amount. Is there anything to that just to kind of move the football along the field there, or anything like that?
related to their compensation.
No, it's an example. So like stipulations, is there anything that they miss out on due to not having that license that a normal person that has the license would be privy to? No, okay.
And, you know,
So-
again, for example, even, all of our new employees, whether they have, both of these individuals, certainly have experience teaching, but being, they will have mentors. I know our EL teachers, again, Pam can speak to this as well. Our EL teachers do a lot of collaborating, a lot of professional development, training from folks at CISA. So there's quite a bit of support, at least, in this case for our EL teachers.
Thank you.
Quick question, Joyce, is there any liability for the district in doing that, or it sounds like that's pretty commonplace?
It happens in every single district. Very common. Very
If it pleases the board, I would recommend that we add this to a personnel committee and maybe come up with some ideas on how to tighten that up if having some kind of criteria or check-in about the employees. I'm happy to add that to the personnel committee. That'd be all right, everybody?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
So still looking for a motion and a second to approve the.
Yeah, I
two
move that we
reports.
approve the personnel report.
Second.
Sorry.
So go ahead, Jen.
Any other discussion or questions for Joyce about the personnel reports? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. And now we're going to discuss, get some information about the district employee background searches.
Yeah, we can talk about that as well. I know that, at our last meeting that there was some conversation about school districts and background checks. So, and we do have the district does have a policy on background checks. So we are certainly in compliance with what we are required to do. The other thing to keep in mind is that DPI, Public Department of Public Instruction, you know, when an individual applies for a license, or every 5 years, the DPI does background checks, and they do out-of-state background checks. Anytime somebody has lived out of state for the last 20 years. But based on the discussion, you know, I sensed that there was some interest in the district, you know, doing out-of-state background checks. And there are some districts that do that. So I reached out to some of my HR colleagues and other districts. Again, some districts do out-of-state, some don't. I asked, you know, for those districts that do out-of-state background checks, you know, what vendor they use. So the most common vendor from other school districts is an organization called BIB, Background Investigation Bureau. So I did reach out to them. And actually myself and Tatum, who's the HR generalist, we had a meeting with a rep from BIB last week one day. So I did get some more information from them. Again, it's the district is complying with what we are required to do. You know, I think there is some merit in, you know, maybe best practice as a district, even though the DPI does out-of-state checks, but it certainly may be merit. Excuse me, the district also doing out-of-state background checks. I would absolutely recommend using a vendor, as other districts do. You know, the cost, if we decide to go with an organization such as this Background Investigation Bureau, right now we're paying to do the Department of Justice, which is the state of Wisconsin, which we do internally. That costs $750 per background check. This would be right around $16 per check. And we would use this not only for employees, we would use it for volunteers, we would use it, you know, as substitutes, we would use it for coaches who don't otherwise work in the district. So we would no longer do, you know, use Department of Justice. We would switch over and use this vendor who would do all of our background checks, including for anyone that's lived out of state.
What was the cost again?
It would be about $2,500 to $3,000 more a year. So it's really not that much more in the whole scheme of things. So their turnaround time is, you know, and somebody, you know, when you're hiring somebody, there's a link that they go on, they fill out their information. And then the turnaround time is within 48 hours.
Joyce, let's clarify this for me. From henceforth, if we contract with this investigation bureau, they would do it for everyone, even the ones that are in state, that have
Yes,
lived in
right.
state?
Right, so we would no longer do,
Why couldn't we just use them to do
When
out
it
of state?
pertains to all of state employees,
Yeah.
we could do it to that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, why don't we do it just for us, people coming from out of state? I mean, I don't,
How do you know? They claim
how do you
residency.
know? Yeah.
I mean, I would just,
yeah, I don't know how you really know.
you really
Because
wouldn't
there's
know
a
if
form
somebody.
you don't necessarily, you could, but you don't necessarily always know just from their application.
Oh, you
like,
don't,
For example,
okay.
like the DPI.
Well, if they have a resume and they say, well, I worked in New Mexico for a while, and then, I mean, that's obvious, but isn't that just come up with the credentials?
I would think if you had something to hide, they wouldn't put that in the resume.
Right.
I guess that's true.
I would recommend, the districts that I talk with that use a vendor to do their background checks,
Wow.
they use, like BIB, they use them for all their background checks.
For every new appointment,
Yeah.
Holy wow, we have a lot of those.
Well, between employees, subs, coaches.
Yeah, there's a ton of
volunteers,
those.
there's
I
probably
mean,
about
God,
300.
$750 a whack, that's
There's
just
probably
like,
about 300 in there.
No,
But
no,
It's a
is it
very, it's an
yeah.
easy.
oh,
process.
$7.50.
She said 3,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
Versus
I see.
Yeah.
Oh,
Seven
I'm
dollars.
sorry. I thought, holy God, $750. Yeah.
I'd agree with you on that one for sure, yeah.
$7.50, but
Yeah, I
would
was never good at
recommend-
math, Joyce, so
I
just
would
forget
definitely
about it.
recommend that we're gonna go this route if we want to do
Okay,
part of our background checks. To do
and if they
out-of-state,
screw up, we can blame them, right?
That,
Yeah.
that we use a vendor to do all of them.
Okay.
Joyce, did you contact any other vendors besides BIB?
I did not, like I said, I reached out to probably 15 or 20 HR colleagues, other school districts. And those that are using a vendor, the vast majority use this BIB. There's others out there. So, I mean, if the board wants to go this route and start doing out of state, I mean, you can certainly reach out to another.
If it would, if it would please the board, I hate giving myself work, but it sounds like the policy needs to be changed from what we're doing now. And so what I would recommend is that we ask personnel
Yeah.
to look at that policy and offer a change to that policy, along with a couple quotes that we could give you at our next meeting. And that we can vote for that policy change if that is agreeable.
I have one question for the, you said that the DPI does out-of-state background checks, Joyce. In that particular instance that we just had going on, did the DPI do a background check for that individual?
So what happens, and I guess I just want to be very cautious about
Yep, I understand.
individual people in this room.
Right.
But anytime somebody is applying for their license, I just graduated, I'm applying for my license, once the individual applies to DPI, it will take anywhere minimum of 4 weeks to 6 weeks for DPI to process that application. So that's part of where there's a little bit of a gap as well. There's other things they are looking at, I'm sure, the DPI before they say, yes, we are going to give you a license to teach this subject in the state of Wisconsin. But part of that is that background check. And they're short-staffed and they've got a lot of applications, so it oftentimes takes up to 6 weeks. I can be applying for my license, fill everything out, upload everything, and it shows that I've applied on their website, but it will take about 6 weeks for DPI to
So the
issue their license.
DPI did The DPI did supply a background check for that person that I'm in reference to.
If you remember, the person hadn't applied for his license.
I see.
Right, yeah, that's right.
So we would not get a background check by going through DPI on the, if that person doesn't
Certainly not a problem.
go through with their, if they don't apply for their license, we're not getting a background check.
And even if, you know, when the person does, it still takes up to 6 weeks. So, I mean, there's a gap in their system.
So those people that are applying for licenses currently, are we currently doing background checks on those individuals, or are we not?
Yes, we're doing the Department of Justice, which is the state of.
So we do the DOJ one, and if they're from out of state, then we're just relying on the DPI currently.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, the DPI will do out of state. When the individual is applying for their license, whatever that license is, and then every 5 years, you know, people that have been teaching forever, you know, periodically they have to do a new background check.
Mhm.
But my understanding and what I've learned is if the individual has lived out of state or in Canada, in another country, anytime in the last 20 years, the DPI does that out of state background check.
how many individuals do we have right now that do not have licenses in our district?
I believe they all have licenses.
So all of our individuals have licenses in our district that are teaching,
Yes.
Some have licenses with
The
stipulations.
stipulations.
but I'm not including those. So how many of those is what I'm asking? How many are licenses with stipulations right now?
I'm estimating, as I said before, I'd have to, you know, look at the list that we keep. I'd say about 25 individuals have a license with stipulations.
None of them are-
Those
none of them
licensed,
are from
but I just want to
out-of-state.
clarify, those licensed with stipulations still have a license. So they have a background check.
Mhm.
So again, it is rare that we would not have a licensed teacher.
So in that instance, that person just didn't have a license. And so,
I would say that we are beyond the appropriate conversation of individual people's and personnel. Like, we cannot continue to do that. It's putting the district at risk.
I don't know if we are putting the district at risk because
I'm just making a recommendation.
I understand.
We have a
So
closed
the
session
reason-
opportunity to answer all of those questions. So you can continue, but I'm just saying that
I think we should do it in committee. You know.
Well,
the conversation, I'm saying that we're isolating an individual and we should.
I know,
not
I
be
know.
doing that.
And I believe the topic that we're referencing
is on the agenda, so I
talked
can,
about for closed session.
Yep.
So I would suggest we continue in closed session.
all right.
All right. Well, Joyce, I want to thank you for taking the initiative of getting information about that after the concerns of last meeting. So thank you very much, and we'll continue that at personnel. Okay, let's move on to the district activity update. Mark.
Okay, thank you. There's just a couple of dates on here that we share with the board because if in fact you have interest, you can attend. The first one is there's mentioned as a bingo night. Some of you have participated in math nights at different schools or whatever. There's not a board business, and I would tell you that we never expect board members to attend. If you're available and you can go, great. If you can't, it's for your information. We let you know that because we will make a posting because anytime a quorum of the board is present, we have to let the public know.
Oh, yeah. Do we have to play?
You don't. Maybe you could be a caller if you wish to be a
good.
celebrity caller. They're always looking for folks. So yeah,
Yeah.
make sure you announce it only
Have good
twice.
joke lines.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And then the second piece, we are fortunate to have, I believe 6, does that sound right? 6 of our district employees who are receiving the Excellence in Education Award. This is the first year of that award. There are over 40 school districts in the region. If you wish to attend, the Peel organization that's supporting it, hosting it this year, just asks that we get a head count. So if in fact you have time, I believe May 14th is a Saturday. So again, not any requirements, not any expecting, but if you do plan to attend, we just want to give Keel a head count. So if you know for sure you're attending tonight, before you head out, let Lori know. If you're not quite sure, we'd like to get that information to them by May 1st, or maybe that's second, this next week. Monday is the second?
Monday is the second. I think I need to know by the 4th.
By the 4th, right? So, Colin?
Yeah, how many teachers did you say?
Oh, they're not all teachers. Staff
Members, sure.
Six.
6 total?
Yep.
Is the district providing any recognition for those 6 in any way, shape, or form?
So we've put them out as much as we can on social media and celebrated in that regard. Once they are given their awards, then we will follow up with obviously some pictures and some news articles and a press release to recognize those folks. But we'll let, it's actually, I think, streamed. I don't think it's broadcast. And I want to say it's TV2. Does that sound right? 5, sorry, mistake. So Green Bay is at WBAY is 5?
No.
FRB, there you go.
Yeah.
They're probably all that, you know. But that is available live stream, the whole event. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, how many staff members are being recognized at this. We had 28 that received the initial nomination and award, and then from those 28, 6 are being recognized. So it's a really nice honor. It's good, and we're really proud of those folks.
Do we know who they are?
Yes. Let's see if I have it in my notes here. Otherwise, if not, I don't want to miss somebody. So that's always the last thing you want to do. Laura, do you have that in front of you? No?
Or if you would email that to us, that'd be great.
Yeah, we mentioned
Yeah.
that the last
Okay,
meeting.
so
I
here's
think
what
it's in the
I think we
minutes.
did.
I think I have it here. So
Yep.
Lisa Delsman, Deb Miller, Christian Sorensen, Luann Berenbach, Ashley Waniger, Michelle Foss. So Lisa Delsman is at Washington. Deb Miller she's a dean of students. Deb Miller is a paraprofessional at Jackson. Christian Sorensen is a program support teacher here in the district in central office. Luann Berenbach is the head custodian at Washington. Ashley Waniger is the school to work coordinator at Lincoln High School, and Michelle Foss is a teacher at Lincoln High School. So wide variety, great people.
Mark, who does the Golden Apple Awards?
So that's
State?
Green Bay. So that's, again, we're not eligible for the Golden Apple, and so that's a little bit why this actually came about.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's not involved with the school district. It's, I believe, another Green Bay news media, and
Okay.
they create the Golden Apple. They just had their celebration last week. So this is basically the Eastern Wisconsin response from the Lake Shore to Lake Winnebago is in the school, and down is the range that we're looking at.
Cool.
Any other questions on those items? Okay, that would be the information I want to share right now.
Okay, and then we have unfinished business. We had asked Mark and Joyce to come up with some information about the superintendent search process. So Mark, you have an update about that?
Yeah, so I hope you all had a chance to just kind of get a preview of the information we gathered. Joyce and I reached out to a number of organizations that support school districts in searching for a superintendent. And again, we can talk through those individuals, organizations. I think I would just reiterate to the board that I believe there are likely 3 viable options that you're going to want to consider as we search for the next superintendent. One would be looking at a search firm and hiring an organization to help support the board for the placement of the next superintendent. The other option would be to hire an interim, which would mean someone for a temporary period of time. That could be a year, 6 months, et cetera, until the board feels like they have time to select a candidate. And then the third option would be to consider an internal candidate. So the information that I have in front of you here is the proposals from the 6 organizations, of which put together lots of information about what their process might be and what the board might choose for moving forward. And again, you have options. You can take some, none, or all of their process. It is likely that the search firms will have potential candidates that they have been working with. So one advantage of a search firm would be that they already have people who might meet the qualifications and they could reach out to. The process for hiring a superintendent, as maybe you've seen in news, happens pretty regularly right now in Wisconsin. So one of the things that the board needs to continue to consider is how they want to address the position. Do they want to get feedback? Do they want the board to make the decision? Do they want to have a public input spot? And so each of those search firms would kind of talk you through those processes. The process for choosing a superintendent probably depends on if you're going to look for somebody to come in from July 1st or therefore in that range, or if you're going to look for an interim. So an interim superintendent is likely someone who is a veteran, who is currently retired or right now not working as a superintendent. Either the search firm or the board could use an organization, or they could go on their own. That individual likely would serve for a specific period of time, whether that's in 1 calendar year, 6 months, 9 months, that would be up to the board. And then you would work individually with that candidate, and then the board would choose to figure out how they want to select the successor of that veteran retired administrator.
Well, I looked at those things pretty carefully, and the length of the process, which is thorough and multi-stepped, is between 15 and 25 weeks. I mean, I don't see how we can do that and not have a number.
There was one, or at least maybe 1 or 2 that said that they could work with our deadlines.
I know, but wow.
My concern is that at this point in time, there are so many openings that we're not getting necessarily the cream of the crop at this point. We need to take our time and not rush into something. And I would highly suggest that we consider an interim, at least very seriously, because we want to make sure that we are really happy with whoever gets a big decision.
The other question I have too on this is, isn't there an advantage of having a firm that isn't from Arizona or Nebraska? I mean, isn't there an advantage on I mean, tell me, I mean, they call it a national search, but is it really? And if it is, honestly, I moved here, quite a long time ago now, but I moved here from Minnesota, and it was like, moving to another country in some way. So I'm not sure that we want to go looking for people who are from Alabama or something like that. Maybe, but I just would like to have a firm.
We are an equal opportunity employer, right?
Yeah, we are. I know. I'm not trying to be prejudicial there at all, but the firms that know Wisconsin are going to be much more sensitive to the specific, the requirements of this place, right?
I thought that all of them listed how they would talk to each of the each of the board members and get a feel from the community also that there's a lot to it before they just put fingers out there asking for someone to come in.
Yeah.
So I think they get to know what we're looking for and even what the greater community expects or hopes for. And then they base it off of a lot of those key elements.
Yeah, I
That
think
was the impression I got anyway.
my thoughts are, I think collectively as a board, we need to decide what that person looks like as far as, these are the specific outcomes that we want to accomplish over this period of time.
Sure, sure. But I think that's number one in terms of the process, isn't it? I mean, the firm comes in and they say, okay, let's huddle on this. And, what are you looking for and why are you looking for it? And I think there's probably some pretty strong opinions in this one. But I so I'm not too worried about that. I think we'll be able to come up with a pretty clear definition and an outline for the sorts of strengths we're looking for, right?
Colin?
Yes, would it be almost better to, or not necessarily better, but would this, because I mean, we could probably sit and discuss the superintendent search in an entire meeting, probably for a couple hours, going over criteria, things we want to see, getting the proper people, et cetera, et cetera. Would it be probably a wise idea to have a meeting established strictly just for that and have that as the only agenda item in the future and probably near future?
And before we decide on a forum?
Before we would decide on any type of, I would say before we decide on a firm, an interim, an internal, any of those things, so that we can all get on the same page and have a good lengthy discussion about what it is we want to see and what it is we want to do here.
That would be my preference as well. I was gonna make a recommendation that we do that, preferably in 48 hours from now, or sometime this week, early next week, where that agenda item is on there solely, and that we discuss that as a board, so we can decide as a group what we're looking for and what option we might want to go with.
Yeah, for sure.
And I appreciate the compilation of different options for firms. I just want to make sure that we're doing diligence on what it is we're going to the process here.
Also, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's an excellent idea. I also think if in fact you do want to have some conversations about people who work currently in the district, you could then choose to, or not choose to, go into closed session at the end after that meeting and have that private conversation about, well, what do we want to consider? Mm-hmm. So that would provide the board with probably the most flexibility.
Sure.
And again, I do think time is a little bit of essence. To answer your question, Carrie, national search means that they put it in national registries. Right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're tapping somebody on the shoulder in New York or California. Right. Okay. And I would say that for the most part, the people who are coming to Manitowoc probably live in Wisconsin. Yeah. And they might live in the Northeast region currently, right? And so, I mean, it might not be, you might get someone from Superior or Lancaster, but sure. That's generally the piece. I'm here to advise the board and give you any feedback. I can give you opinions on search firms, but again, I would want the board to try to decide, you guys get to decide what you want to do and how much time you want to spend on it. So
part of waiting until early part of next week would afford each of us an opportunity to look into some of the references that each of these places have provided for us to give us like even more grounding than just a list. So even if we each took it upon ourselves to call a couple.
Well, I would also encourage everyone to think outside the box, meaning that we don't have to be a firm. We can do something ourselves. We can hire a business manager. There's lots of options. And so, I also don't want us to be pigeonholed into having to use a search firm, and just these 5. So that would be the other thing, is that I would like everyone to come to the table with what they really believe would be the best thing, especially with the resources that we have around the table here. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, we did reach out to, I think, maybe 10.
That's a heavy lift, isn't it? I mean, you know, to recruit and to advertise and to, like, you know all the perimeters and policies, et cetera. I mean, I don't feel at all.
I don't think she's, yeah, I think that's actually, I mean, that's not what you're suggesting, right? That the board would be the superintendent, right? You're saying, look at other options.
No, I
other than the
didn't.
firm, right?
No,
Oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding.
no, even for a firm. I mean, geez.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
That's why they get, you know, $20,000 a contract. I mean, there's a lot of work in there, and I don't think that either the people on the staff here can do that, and I just think it's beyond our pay grade.
I would like to plan a closed session so we could talk about it, because this is paramount to our community. Our children need a direction. September 1st or beginning of school year, we need to have something in place. We need to do this as soon as possible. So I would.
I mean, this is like hiring the next Supreme Court justice,
Right.
for our district. It's that important. And so I think that, you know, we as a board really need to come together to decide what that's going to look like. And so I would agree.
I agree that it has to be done as soon as possible, but I also agree with Kathy. We want to make sure we're doing the right one. So in the interim, in my opinion, sounds like it might be a smooth transition.
Okay. So then we have on the agenda the future meeting dates. Could we just maybe bring that? We'll discuss when we want to meet for that then in the future. Does that sound okay? Cool.
I'm curious, Mark or Joyce, do you guys have any recommendations based on these options? I mean, it was like over 100 pages of stuff that I was looking through, and
No, it's a lot. Yeah.
just a lot to digest. And
Yeah. You know, I could only give you what I'm familiar with and what I know, not, you know, so for example, I could just, you know, I don't know GR recruiting. Doesn't mean that they're not good. I have not seen that organization or heard of working with that organization. I would say that WASB, which is a school board association, is very busy and they do it regularly. Typically, WASB is associated with smaller school districts, not always, but typically. So if you look in their groups, they're typically doing smaller school district searches. And then the other 3, Rain Associates, Hazard Young and Atia, McPherson, Jacobson, School Exec Connect. Those are pretty prominent. McPherson and Jacobson isn't as popular in Wisconsin. They don't do as many, but I would say if you looked at Hazard Young and Atia, School Exec Connect, and Rain Associates, they probably have done 30 superintendent
They
to
got
100.
Wisconsin office.
I mean, a year. I mean, this is what they do. One of the things I think the board should just be aware of is that when you're hiring the superintendent, it is a public position. And so therefore, you have to be aware of some of the state statutes in regards to the selection process. The reason I say that is because when you move to interview people, no superintendent is want to interview if in fact it's a public knowledge on the first interview. They just don't want to do that. So there's a requirement that says the semifinalist has to be 6 or more. If it's less than 6, you have to release those names to the media. The media is going to want to know who's in there. Generally, school boards will interview, let's say, 6 to 8 on the initial piece so that they don't have to release those names. Because superintendents who are sitting are not going to get in if they know you're going to release their name if you're one of 8. They're just not going to get in. Okay, because they have to go back to their public and say, I'm in, but now I might not even get forwarded to the finals. So those are the details that the search firms, any of these, would be able to help you with. Not that you couldn't figure that out on your own. You absolutely can. And there might be other professional organizations that hire CEOs or CFOs or executives that could do the same thing. We just reached out to relatively popular search firms, and these are the ones that we received information from. But it is something, when you reduce your candidates, you know, the board has to think about, well, how are we going to attract the best candidates, and what are we going to do that? And one of the things that I would tell you that it does is you hire a search firm. That if you don't have a search firm right now in this process, most superintendents are going to ask questions before they go there and say, well, why aren't you hiring a search firm? Does that mean you have somebody internal and you've already decided and I'm wasting my time?
Mhm.
And because the public part of that is not the same for any other official, you have to be aware of that position that the board is. And they're going to want to try to protect those folks until they have to release the names. And at that point, you have to be pretty sure that those are the few individuals you have. So again, I think there may be other professional organizations that support businesses. I am not familiar with any others that support school districts. Like, these are the ones that support school districts. So, but I think it's a great idea to have this conversation. You have to have the general conversation in open session, but if you want to negotiate or talk about individual people, you can then choose to go to closed session.
Individual firms, you mean?
You can, the only way you can really go into closed session is
Is
that
if it's
you're
a
trying,
person.
to negotiate. Like, you could hear them, and if you're negotiating, or you're talking about an individual
Okay,
person,
okay.
right? So what I say that is, if you have some people in mind, or if there's somebody internal, you could then go into closed session and have that conversation. But if you're talking about what we want and the characteristics maybe for a superintendent, or do we want how we want to get public input, or those things, that needs to be a public.
So if the topic came up, are there any internal candidates? We could go into closed session on that.
Correct. Yes, you should go into closed session.
Yep.
Because the board may or may not want to consider internal candidates, and you want to have that conversation.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, we should do a meeting right away.
Mark, has anybody come internally to ask about interim to you personally? No.
Yes.
Can't say.
So maybe we should be having that meeting right now.
Well, no, we can do it. Let's do a meeting that we just did this.
Yeah, how about I tell you in closed session? How's that sound?
Okay.
Okay, so then when we get to that part of the agenda at the end of coming up with a meeting, we'll find that meeting time that works best for us, okay?
Cool.
Okay,
That's good.
next item on the agenda is the out-of-state travel proposal.
So typically we roll through our committees to do out-of-state travel. However, in this case, through the change, we didn't have any committees, and we have an individual who has, through the FCCLS national competition, and Pam reminded me what those initials were. Family Consumer Science.
No, Family Career Community Leaders of America.
Okay, thank you.
That's good.
And we have an individual who has been or qualified for the national competition. And so even though some of it falls off of the next year, we're looking for approval for individual to attend the national competition June 29th through July 3rd.
I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion about that?
So we're looking
question?
at $1,320, right? Yep.
There's grant money. There's grant for it. Is that correct? So it's not a cost, the grant covering it? Is that
I
correct?
think the grant covers part of it.
Okay.
For the student, and then
Okay, and if there's no other if there's no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Allison and, I forget the teacher that's going, Brody. Enjoy your trip. Okay, so, we are moving to other business. Ad hoc Student Behavior Advisory Committee report.
Okay, thanks, guys. We had a meeting on Sunday evening. Actually, in attendance were all the normal committee members, excuse me. Plus Mr. Holtzman came, and we had also invited our MEA rep, and she came also. So we had a great discussion, and one of the things that we have been finding lately that we'd like to move on, or I see that the board needs to move on, is to look at our policy 5500. So I'm going to ask all of you in the next 2 weeks or so before our next meeting, if we could have some of this on our agenda and look at our policy 5500, which is our code of conduct. We found several school districts that have really great resources already on their websites too, that have kind of revamped some of them or have some different language, and that we're strongly recommending we at least look at. So I will be sending you the links for those in the next few days, if that's okay. And these things are really so that these things are addressed like the first day of school this year. The big thing to remember is that the ad hoc behavior committee is a group of people of, it's myself, but it's different members of the community. And really in and of itself, we have no power. I mean, it's really, so we're kind of meeting in limbo land. I mean, view ourselves as like a research team. And we can bring ideas and suggestions to the board and to our superintendent, but at some point, someone has to be in the position where they can take action if they choose. So one of the things that we're hoping for is to start figuring out a way to have those next steps so that a connection can be made from within our district. So whether it means we bring in teachers and administrators, but somehow we need to have just a group of committee members who are talking about stuff and researching things, moving into how can actions be actually done with this or what can be done next. So
Are you suggesting like we do a retreat like we did last summer?
no, like I think as a board, we need to put something in place for someone to start taking action on these things. I don't know what that looks like, but first of all, we are just a group that's been meeting, and no matter what we do, whether we buy a system or we do something in-house, we need to have buy-in from our administration and our teachers, essentially. Yeah. They need to be part of our conversation. And so right now, it's just a committee that's, like you said, meeting, we've got great ideas, we're doing research, but there's nowhere to go with it. Colin?
Yeah, so I agree with you 1,000,000% there. So I would like to see that ad hoc committee report directly to personnel, and then from personnel, it can then be that is the transition from personnel into the greater board, so that then there can start being some actionable items based on what that committee does find and see.
But
that's just how I mean, because I agree that there has to be some sort of clear path. So that's where I thought that the best clear path would be was via personnel, because it is personnel type of issues.
But it could also be curriculum.
It'd be fun too if you
You're
want to have
talking
that
about
too.
almost no matter what program you look at, or even doing it in-house, would involve things like lesson plans. So it's one of those border things. I think it's a topic that we should try to have a real discussion over if we can, like the next meeting, to all think about this and, you know, what does that pathway look like? How do we bring in our administrators and our teachers with it?
Yeah, it might be better.
Well, and
to committee, as Colin says.
Yeah, but I think it should be decided what committee is that, you know, so.
So actually, I think you're probably, that's a very valid point, that it could be brought up via committee. Personnel is going to be having a massive task that they're undertaking currently.
Right.
You know, this allows them to focus on that one.
Yeah.
So if there's another committee that can tackle that other thing, then yeah.
Well, and truthfully, Colin, just sitting here looking at you, you've taken a serious interest in
I have, yeah.
behavior committee and really watch things. So since you're head of curriculum, that might be appropriate. I'm just throwing that out there. So anyway, that's one of the things that we've been talking about. Oh, did you have something?
Yeah, I think it should go in curriculum as well, because I think we can surround it around classroom management. So I think that's where we can work on that. So I would agree, curriculum committee is where it should be at.
There's a lot of crossover between those two, but it seems to me that would be appropriate. Like you said, Colin, there's a lot going on in personnel right now, but it's not my decision to be made. So really, like, a task force needs to be created, right? That's something somehow we need to make a decision. Who's bringing it here? I've just been there and I've been leading the meetings and I'm pretty passionate about the whole thing, but so anyway, that's that. And, again, whatever we do, I think we're capable of doing it. We just need to again move on this because the school year is right around the corner. So we at least have to have the starter plan and the foundations with what we're doing. The other thing I wanted to kind of ask about how everyone felt is, and granted, we could just do this, but I feel as though it's appropriate to come to the board and ask, but I have been thinking that it would be good for us to maybe survey the entire teacher population and have them maybe list what behaviors they want to be able to deal with the first, say, 5. What they think is the most important. Is it something like walking in the classroom? How do you ask to go to the restroom when it's appropriate? It could be all those really simple things, but what are those first foundational simple tasks that kids need to learn when they walk into a school building? And what do our teachers think that should be? And I thought as a committee, we have a core group of people that could be very easy to make that survey and kind of list it 1 through 10. What do you think is most important? Divide it up between us and kind of come up with our own calculation rather than paying someone to do a survey.
Yeah, Kathy, I think the first thing is that there's a lot of people on the board right now that haven't received any of the reports that
Right.
you've sent out. And I thought, first of all, your verbal report, your oral report last meeting was really gangbusters, I thought. I mean, it just was really rich and full of things and clearly reflected that a good deal of study had already occurred. So I don't think we want to relitigate all of that. But I think that if it goes to a committee, the committee would be really well served if it had a meeting with the ad hoc committee, and that everybody be brought up to date on what the ideas are now. Because I think the ideas. I mean, even your written report, a few weeks ago, I thought, boy, this is really showing me something. And I think that it's a pretty. I think we're at the point now where we're moving ahead. Is not a leap at all.
Yeah, it feels like we're stalemating right now, though, because we are just a committee that has no.
Yeah.
We're not empowered to do anything. Just to make
if you meet with the curriculum committee, that's the committee you pick. They'll bring it up and it'll come up for a vote and then we'll move. That's
Yeah, the other part though that we want to include though is administrators and the teachers.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work without their taking part in it.
No, but that's part of the process.
But definitely we need to
get a structure.
Yeah, we definitely need to create some policy around this too as a board.
So obviously, I mean, it sounds like there's significant interest in creating that connection. I know your task is to make those connections for who's oversight and stuff like that for committees. Do you want to work on that maybe?
As I recall, the president decides.
Colin, I want you
to
chair of the committee to wrangle your troops
All right.
and
There you go.
figure out a way that we can take all that hard work and make a connection between those two groups and timelines, deadlines of how we can get this up and moving. What's the best recommendations moving forward as far as a survey? How will we get it? Have your team. And Kathy, I know you're not on that committee, but obviously we want your wealth of knowledge there, and it's another meeting for you, but to be able to do that.
Well, and I think the people who are currently serving on the ad hoc committee, you won't find a more passionate group of people about trying to take care of behavior. Again, I will say they've met every single week since January. Everyone is still wholly committed to trying to make, the effort of changing the culture, the behavior culture in our schools. And to just have the board just take it over, I think would be a large mistake. I think it needs to be a group effort. They've got a lot of great ideas, timelines, people who are former teachers and understand.
Yeah, and I think I heard,
timelines of
I started watching it last night, the last meeting, I think someone said, that it's a lot of work for one small, for a 3-person committee to do.
Sure.
And so, that's what I envision, is that it's a collaborative effort, that they've done so much work, and that the committee would probably continue to delegate tasks to that group in order to come up with that final plan.
Yeah, it would have to be. I mean, honestly, the 3 people who are on curriculum, you've never had any experience in the classroom. You need to rely on the people who really know what they're dealing with and what they're hoping for. So I think it has to be a connection. Oh, that's right, you were one, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. Who else?
All but
Mr.
one,
Phipps
all but
is-
one, yes.
Yeah,
Who's
sorry.
on that committee?
That's me, Phipps, and Tony.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anything else, Kathy, about,
Not at this time. Okay.
If I could just add real quick, Kathy, great work, and I would encourage you definitely to reach out to the administrators and get more of them involved. I would think maybe looking at the schools that have the biggest issues right now, it'd be good to get their input.
Yeah, we've been doing that actually, and I'll send you some of the information that we have, because before I didn't have your emails. So we have reached out to a number of school districts. We've had speakers. We have another one coming in on Thursday, and she's dealt with the Milwaukee School District. And as you know, that's a very that's a difficult district to be in, and so she's dealt with behavior issues there. So she's coming to just talk with us and give us her point of view too. So a lot of the work that we've done has been trying to find districts much like ours.
Yep. No, and that's great. And what I meant by that was in our district, right? Let's get the administrators more involved
Right.
in the schools that are having the biggest issues with that.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys.
okay, Mark, you want to talk a little bit about the CISA 7
Sure.
represent?
So as part of the CISA 7, Manitowoc Public School District is one of the members. I think there's 40 to 60 school districts. We all are part of CISA 7. They have a board as well, and each school district who's part of CISA 7 asks for someone to be the representative. I believe Kathy Willis was the rep for CISA 7, or is currently. But each year we need to nominate and register an individual who would potentially go, or at least be informed and report back to the board the meetings I believe are in Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Kathy? For CISA 7.
Kathy, is that something you'd like to continue?
I think that would be a good experience for someone else to have at this point.
Okay.
I've done it for 2 years now. So.
Okay. Can you give a little description on what that entails? So
Really, you just get reports from the meetings most of the time. And like typically twice a year, you're invited to go attend the meetings. So it's very, very simple. There's not a lot of time involved. Just basically those 2 meetings that you attend, and actually they usually feed you the slides. Okay, so yeah.
is there anybody that has a strong interest of wanting to be the CISA 7 rep? Okay, yeah,
Absolutely.
okay. Do we have to do a motion in a second?
Probably.
Okay. Can we have is there a motion
Yeah.
to nominate?
I'll nominate Matthew Spaulding.
Second.
Any discussion about that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then we also have a similar representative and alternate representative for the WASB Delegate Assembly. And I know Kathy, you've done that
too.
for us as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to give a little background about, what that position.
That's pretty simple too. With WASB, it's just, we all get information from WASB all the time. So the only thing that's different about that is when you are the delegate in January, you vote on behalf of the board. So you'll be given the information of the different, what am I trying to think of? Amendments or additions that people are trying to make, the resolutions. And then you go and you vote. Like Carrie attended this year too, and they offer a lot of different programs that you can listen to, but the delegate actually attends the assembly to vote. You can still attend it. You're just not a voting member if you're not the delegate. So you're just that representative of the board to vote on behalf of the board.
You want to do that more? Well, that's,
I would,
that's up
but
to
I
you.
mean,
That's
again, I'd love to attend the assembly. It's great and it's very
Convention,
informative.
yeah.
It's a great convention, but
Conventions.
if somebody else wanted that opportunity, I certainly wouldn't hesitate.
And Kathy did a nice job too of presenting, I believe in December, what the issues were and just got a consensus of, how she would want the board to vote or how we would want her to vote. That was good. So is there anybody that,
We're true to those recommendations.
Of course I was.
is there anybody that has, it's kind of kind of gets into the legal realm too. So if laws, resolutions, that kind of stuff, is there anybody that has a passion to want to do that
It's a
or?
pretty good restaurant right next door.
Yeah, all the board members are invited to
Yeah,
go to the convention though. So, I'd be happy to do it for the board, but but if anyone else wants to, it just gives me an opportunity to attend more of the assemblies.
Well, this says here representative and alternate. So do we need two people?
You need somebody in case you're asking someone to be somewhere in January in
Right.
right? So sometimes you just say yes, and then something doesn't work out. So we have an alternate in case that person can't make it. And there is no requirement, some school districts their person doesn't go, but we should have somebody who is a representative and an alternate. If it's a snowstorm or something comes up, it comes up.
That'd be the older one. Unless anybody else really wants to do it.
I'll nominate you.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't mind going. I have the ability to go during the day and stuff too. It's a couple days, so I don't mind doing it. But again, if anyone else wanted the opportunity, I'd be happy to pass that along.
Carrie, would you want to be the alternate?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought the convention was great and I would do it again. The convention is just very, very informative. So.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion, a second for Kathy and Carrie as our alternate?
No motion.
Second.
Any discussion about that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, guys.
And just take a moment though.
Yes.
I really do want to encourage all of you that if you have the ability to go to it, to go. There's a lot of learning to be done as board members there, and it really was valuable. So I'll just leave it at that.
The manager of the Brewers made a great presentation. There's really some very, very good speakers.
I'll definitely go if I can.
Yeah,
And Mark
that's
asked if he could get a tryout.
I did. I asked him if he needed a special catcher. He said he would take it into consideration.
Yeah,
Did you
right.
just play baseball?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think the other part is there are hundreds of other school board members from all around the state.
Yeah, right.
And so your whole day is just engaging, like, how do you do this? And what have you done with that? And how is it working with that? So I think it's very powerful. And they're looking for the same thing, for the answers on how to help support students. So I think that is really good opportunity.
Yeah.
And you got a really great pen out of it too.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I didn't get it.
Excellent.
Of course,
It's the little thing.
It's
Yeah.
the little thing.
All right, so future meeting dates, I would encourage, all of you to kind of get with your committee assignments and also the directors to make sure kind of what's coming up. I know curriculum, Jason, typically we've had a set meeting once a month. Do you, as directors, want to talk about scheduling one now, or do you want to do just conversing with the chair? What would everyone prefer there?
I thought we'd connect with Colin.
Okay.
Schedule.
Okay.
No. It's all
Oh,
right.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And then I'll touch base with Kathy and as well to see if when would be a good time to meet with her group as well for the ad hoc committee.
Great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our meeting that we're going to have, another special meeting that we would have to discuss the options for our superintendent position. I'm just going to start throwing out, does Monday work at all for anybody?
Sure.
Yeah, let me pull that up here just a second.
You're talking about in the evening?
Yeah, I'm
We
thinking,
gotta have it open-ended.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking early evening, you know,
April, what time?
5, work okay with everybody?
5 o'clock it is.
5 on Monday. the
Probably start at
2nd.
5:30. Does that work?
5:05. Yes, 5:30 would be, 5:30 is good.
So May 2nd, 5:30.
Mhm. And Mark, will this room be available?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much do you want, myself, or what supports do you want for that?
Let me think about that.
Okay.
As I, get an agenda together for that, and I certainly don't think every director needs to be here, but
Sure, well, we can connect.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
perfect. Okay, so Monday, 5:30 here, and we'll get you an agenda ASAP. Obviously, it's gonna be focused on that with the option, more than likely closed session as well there, so. Okay, so our last thing here is to go into our closed session. And the Board of Education is gonna vote, we need to vote, motion and a second to convene in closed session for the purpose of considering the following matter. Considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85, subsection 1C of the Wisconsin statute. So do I have a motion and a second?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
No,
Aye.
we need a roll call vote.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's second? I heard a second over here.
I say.
I think
Okay,
it's-
thank
yeah,
you, sorry. Okay.
The
and
other
then-
motion.
all right. Okay, Colin Brunel,
aye.
Matthew Phipps,
Aye.
Stacy Selner,
Aye.
Matthew Spalding.
Aye.
Carrie Trask,
Aye.
Tony Vosdelica.
Aye.
And Kathy Willis. Aye, thank you.
We could take maybe a 4 or 5 minute recess just to let the folks head out, and then we'll start. Thank you. You use the restroom, there's one down at the end of the hallway, just to the right.